Welcome. It's the Single African Market Program, the continent of Africa's most reliable as well as #1 media platform regarding the journey of the continent of Africa to integrate its entire economy. And this week we are going to go to the largest economy on the continent of Africa, and that is Nigeria. We'll be hearing from the Traders Association in Nigeria about the state of play of the AfCFTA in Nigeria. I'll be talking to the president of the Nigerian Traders Association, who is incidentally a trade lawyer, also the federal government of Nigeria's AfCFTA champion, to find out what it is that his members are looking up for as far as the AfCFTA is concerned. Meanwhile, there is a lot of calls to enhance cross-border trading, particularly within West Africa, using innovation as well as technology. Let's listen. West African governments have been called upon to embrace technology and innovation to promote cross-border trade. Chairman of the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, ETLS Task Force, Dr. Mohamed Ibn Chambers, who made the call, emphasized that technology will be able to address bottlenecks that were currently impeding economic activities and ensure change in business processes within the sub-region.
We need to begin to look inward to see how can we draw strength from our own economies, produce more internally, trade more, and try to take advantage of opportunities for trade-led development.
At a workshop organized by POS Foundation and Ghana International Trade Commission with support from GIZ, participants examined the web portal that provides information hub on business operations to inform prospective investors and entrepreneurs.
There is a platform which I follow very actively of traders in agricultural commodities between Burkina Faso, Togo, between Burkina Faso, Ghana, between Burkina Faso and Cote d'Ivoire. And they have used just our simple WhatsApp to create a platform that is very, very active and useful. So when you go on this, you will see in real time vehicle number ASXXSY has left Kupela or wherever in Burkina Faso.
It was revealed that SMEs contribute the largest proportion of intra-Africa trade and therefore needed to be encouraged to produce more to encourage continental cross-border trading. The executive director of POS Foundation, Jonathan Oseyo-Wusu, emphasized the significance of regional integration to cross-border trade.
We cannot talk about human rights without development. And it is a fact that where there is development, the citizens are able to fight for themselves even when their rights are being abused. Therefore, the connection of rule of law when it comes to trade, and then also getting economic emancipation as citizens of West Africa will help promote rights of citizens and bring about sustainable development.
Economic operators and representatives of business communities from the sub-region shared common challenges in the course of intra-Africa cross-border trading. Innovation and technology very, very needed for cross-border trading if we want to be able to take advantage of all of that, as you may have heard there. Now, if you also listen carefully, small and medium enterprises are very much involved in cross-border trading, and women form a greater part of small and medium enterprises, that is SMEs. Now, this week, the women who are involved in trade have called for intense sensitization as well as education when it comes to the AfCFTA, because they believe a lot of women who are involved in trading and businesses are not very much aware of the AfCFTA and what the benefits are. Women in business and trade have called on African governments and the AfCFTA Secretariat to intensify education on the Continental Agreement among small businesses, particularly those that are led by women, to ensure efficient implementation of the agreement. At a stakeholder workshop organized by the Aya Institute for Women, Politics and Media with support from GIZ, it was explained that a research report produced by the Aya Institute has revealed that out of 80 MSMEs and 370 traders sampled for the research, about 40 MSMEs and 296 traders stated that they were not aware of the AfCFTA.
Awareness and knowledge about the AfCFTA. We see that a little above 50% of total firms in the retail sector, that's the highest, that's the sector that has the highest level of awareness and knowledge about the AfCFTA, slightly above 50%. And next to that are those in the services sector, and then the least is in the manufacturing sector.
We are currently implementing the Ghana components of two larger programs, one continental one, the AfCFTA support program, and one global program on trade facilitation. We have in both programs a strong focus on supporting women in cross-border trade and medium, small, micro enterprises. And we started last year already with a study that we are looking at today that assesses the potential of women-led SMEs in Ghana to take advantage of the AfCFTA.
A marketing manager of Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industries explained that so far, no company has been able to export under the AfCFTA, but registration of companies are currently ongoing.
The rules of origin, where your material, your raw materials are coming from, play a very critical role in whether you can export under AfTA. So it's not like you are a woman doing business and whatever you are doing, you can export it under AfTA. There are rules that govern what products you are producing that is AfTA certified.
The women in trade also complained about the fact that businesses lack information on benefits under the Continental Trade Agreement.
Tomorrow, with the Continental Free Trade, you will have Togo people coming to work in Ghana. You will have Nigerians coming to Ghana. You will have people coming. It's going to be competition of whoever is giving free labor, who's doing cheaper. Are we going to start complaining to the government and say, now, why did you sign AfTEC? These people have come and taken our jobs? No. So there's a lot of things. It's not just about moving of goods, and that's why it's so important that we have these conversations, we have these dialogues.
We keep talking. 1 year now, sometimes we are fatigued because it looks like AfTA is standing somewhere. Everybody goes and whatever we want to say, we will attach AfTA to it. And we'll go and talk about AfTA. Women in this AfTA. Men in that AfTA. This AfTA. And we've been talking a lot. Ghana as a country must take this as World Cup.
The leadership of the women in trade therefore urged government and the AfCFTA Secretariat to make information on the AfCFTA readily available for businesses, and in this context, women-led businesses.
It's clear that just getting the information across is not enough. I mean, there is a big gap. We can see from the research that the information is not getting out there, but it's not even just getting information out there, it's understanding the information.
People are waiting for the Continental Free Trade to fail. And if not fail, then everybody wants to come and take advantage in Africa of its success. Tomorrow, all the raw material we're sending out, we know which countries we're sending them out to. Those people manufacture cheaper than us. They're going to bring that same product through the same routes that they have funded you. They're paying for your port, they're paying to make your roads, they're paying all this. They will bring it cheaper. You will have no manufacturing industries.
They also called for deliberate efforts to assist women-led informal businesses to formalize.
Why are we still in the informal sector? We need to have a deliberate effort to move these SMEs from the informal to the formal sector so that we even qualify for this finance. We talk about the fact that, that there's difficulty when it comes to access to finance, when it comes to loans. But while we stay small and while we stay informal, it's very difficult even for that lender or for that investor to take an interest in what we're doing if we're still informal. We haven't registered our businesses, we don't have proper records of accounts, all these little things.
The leadership of the women in trade called for intense education on the AfCFTA, as many more traders are still yet to know about the Continental Trade Agreement. So sensitization, education, very critical for proper implementation of the AfCFTA. And if you notice the two events, the one that is calling for cross-border trading and the one that is also calling for sensitization and education as far as AfCFTA is concerned, were both supported by the GIZ. And GIZ indeed is supporting this platform as well to bring you a lot of information regarding this journey of the continent of Africa to integrate its market. And in the past couple of weeks, we have been engaging some experts in the area of doing business on the continent of Africa. Not long ago, we spoke with the Chief Executive Officer of Djibouti Shipping Company. We also spoke with Professor of African History from the University of Edinburgh. And this week, we're going all the way to the largest economy, the country with the largest economy on the continent of Africa, speaking to the man who is the president of the Traders Association of Nigeria, the continent of Africa's largest economy. We want to find out from him the state of play when it comes to AfCFTA over there and what the traders and the business community are expecting when it comes to the AfCFTA. Listen. Since January 1st, 2021, the AfCFTA implementation commenced. We are yet to see commercially meaningful trading to happen under the AfCFTA. So far, what is the state of play when it comes to the AfCFTA in Nigeria?
Thank you very much, Sam. I think the state of play in Nigeria is almost like what it is in every other country. And among the 54 member countries that have signed on to the AfCFTA to date. And I think I must note this, I speak on behalf of myself and perhaps my association, and not on behalf of government. But I also know that as a champion, as the federal government champion on the AfCFTA, there are a few things that I may be privy to. As we are now, I am aware that in terms of practical takeoff or commencement of the AfCFTA, it is almost like a zero tap. Zero in the sense that all the instruments that are required for the comprehensive and practical takeoff are not comprehensively on the table. Of course, you and I perhaps are aware that the key instrument, which is the rules of origin, which should be the mother of the AfCFTA implementation, is still under negotiations. And I'm also aware that even as we speak, some of the custom officials and state officials of governments right there in Accra, meeting today on, dotting the I's and crossing the T's on the AfCFTA, and I mean on the rules of origin. And of course, specifically, when you look at the about 6,000 tariff lines, over 6,000 tariff lines that are, involved in the AfCFTA, almost about 5,512 or thereabout are under liberalization, which covers 90%. And to get all of these tariff lines in terms of their headings, in terms of HS codes, in terms of itemizations, are not, this is not a child's play. It will take some time. Yeah. It will take some time. And that's why some of us were also of the opinion that the kind of fire brigade approach, which the heads of states, well, I don't blame them, but in terms of deadlines that they were propagating, was not feasible. And we knew it. We knew it practically. That, when you look back today and see that a year and some months after, 1st of January 2021, we are still not out of the woods in terms of implementation. We are still not, implementing. Nobody would say, oh, we have benefited from the implementation of the AfCFTA in terms of trade. So all of these are things that are happening. And in Nigeria specifically, the Action Committee, the National Action Committee, is working day and night, looking at all the instruments, preparing the customs, preparing the agencies in terms of standardization, preparing agencies in terms of administration and regulations. For instance, the NAFDAC, preparing also ways of ensuring that there's the harmony between what we have at the regional level, namely the ETLS and the AfCFTA, so that there would be no kind of gap in implementation. And these are things that are happening right now. And the next step, I believe, would be how to now get all the contents of all the protocols, the 9 protocols, get them towards the implementation agencies, namely the customs, who are the gatekeepers, and then get them, in terms of build their knowledge capacity around all of these, weave other agencies around knowledge capacity on these templates, and so that there will be a seamless implementation.
We have heard from the Secretariat, we have heard from the Council of Trade Ministers that so far 88% of the rules of origin, or let me be specific, 87.7% of the rules of origin has been negotiated. Now, they presented this figure to the heads of states of government of Africa on the 6th of February thereabout, so that we commence trading under this particular negotiated rules of origin. The heads of states then approved that 87.7% that we can trade. Do you think that it is enough to trade under this 87.7% rules of origin negotiated? And are Nigerians and Nigerian business community ready to trade under this?
I think, first of all, it's important to note that Nigerian business community is very ready, has been ready as at yesterday, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the preparation is that, the AfCFTA, if well implemented, is for their benefits. And therefore, if it is not well designed and well articulated, they will also be the ones to bear the brunt. In that regard, they will be the brunt bearers. So there are 2 ways to it. It is either the private sector, the business community, becomes beneficiaries or become the brunt bearers. Therefore, what we are trying to do is everything possible to make sure that the business community, not only Nigerian business community, but also African business community entirely, become beneficiaries of this particular magnetic and very efficient and development-oriented instrument called the AfCFTA. Nobody will now look back and say, oh, my hands are bound. Nobody will look back and say, oh, I have lost some money. And nobody will say, oh, look, I have been cheated, I have been ill-treated. And therefore, what we are looking at is, in the next few years, in the next 5 years, we would track back and say, oh, yes, this was the level of our development. This is the addition that the AfCFTA has brought about. This was the level of our employment generation. This is exactly where we are right now. And this is what AfCFTA has added. This was the level of our poverty. This is where we are now reduced. And this is therefore what we have tracked on. And this, and on and on and on and on. We want to see those figures that would benchmark our traction, our impact, the impact, the overall impact on not only the business community, but also on our economy as a continent, as a people. And by the way, when you look at it and see that Nigeria occupies a big space there, they call them a big brother, another way. But frankly speaking, out of the 1.2 billion population, Nigeria has about 210 million.
Yes.
Which is almost about 1/5.
The largest economy.
The largest economy also. And in terms of market share, the largest in terms of, and this is why we are ensuring doing everything, working day and night to ensure that it is not only well for Nigerian business community, but also for the entire African space. But to perhaps put a footnote on this, we must also understand that some mistakes have been made in the past.
Yeah.
No businessman wants to have those mistakes made again. Think about the closure of the border by Nigeria.
Yes.
Nobody wants to recall that again. Nobody wants to go through that again. I see also that Benin Republic closed the border at some point. I'm sure you are aware of that.
Yes.
I am sure that you know also that Lakaji border at Lomé, in Togo, was also shut down somehow. These are things that we do not want to have again. It is the private sector, the business community in Nigeria, in Ghana, in the Benin Republic, in Togo, in Cote d'Ivoire, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, that bear the brunt of all of these. And we do not want this in our space any longer. That's why we are praying, thy kingdom come, O Lord. Give us this day AfCFTA so that we can march along.
What do you think are some of the lessons we can learn from the challenges and the problems we have encountered with the ETLS, that's the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, that we can correct getting into commercially meaningful trading under the AfCFTA?
Number one, adaptation to the law, to the rules. And I give an instance. Whereas on the ETLS, there is a shabby implementation to the extent that some instruments like the ECOWAS Transit Protocol is just like, dormant, comatose, where it provides essentially that goods that come in from third parties destined to another country must be, if they are cleared from one point, they must be escorted by the customs administration of that particular country where they were cleared, and then to the border of the destination country. This is on paper. None of the countries is doing this. And for instance, between Benin and Nigeria, Benin Republic, goods destined to Nigeria come into Benin Republic. And when they are cleared, instead of the customs applying the provisions of the interstate road transit protocol, stricto sensu, and escort those containers as they were without breaking the seal and then handing over as it is to the Nigerian Customs Administration, this is rather obeyed in breach. And what we find is that those containers, consignments are cleared from that end, and then the business owners, the owners of those consignments will come on the way, they'll break the seal and transload, and in the process, many things happen. Some other goods, kind of goods that were not originally in the manifest, find themselves in. And that's why you are having insecurity from every end. That's why we are having drug abuse everywhere. That's why we are having, arms proliferation and small arms and light weapons everywhere. And this is not good for our continent. It's not good for our region. It's not good for our countries. But they're all muzzled on that, trade wrongly. The second I'm going to talk about is the subject of rules of origin. And that's why we are talking about this. There are goods that come in from third-party countries that are, brought into some countries within the ECOWAS system, ECOWAS region. And they are tried to be exported, re-exported under the ETLS. Come on, who is fooling who?
Yeah.
That's wrong. That's wrong. That's essentially wrong. And of course, if we carry that template into the AfCFTA, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
So we cannot continue this way. And that's why we're looking up to AfCFTA that is well articulated, pragmatic enough, with the coverage that has strict rules and sanctions. And that's one of the things I'm calling for. I still see, and I'm shouting on top of the roof, I am still seeing an AfCFTA that has loose sanctions. The sanction mechanisms and the penalties within the context of the AfCFTA is so poor, so porous that anybody would want to take a dive and then damn the consequences.
Oh, really? Is that what you see now?
That's what I see. That's what I see.
The sanction
we don't
rules
have
under
strong
the
sanctions.
are not
strong sanctions.
stringent enough.
They are not strong enough. Sanctions, as it were, under the ETLS. That's exactly what we are seeing. And that's why we are saying, let the lessons be learned from the ETLS implementation.
Okay.
Where we didn't have strong sanctions.
Yeah.
So we need to really strengthen the sanction mechanisms under the AfCFTA, so that whether it is member states that offended the law, that breached it, there will be the application of deterrence for others. And this is exactly what I'm saying. I'm shouting.
For the observations that you have made, and you play very important role as far as the economy of this region is concerned, because you represent the traders of the largest economy on the continent, also within the region. You are saying that the sanctions under the AfCFTA are not strong and deterrent enough.
Absolutely, and I'm shouting over the roof, on top of the roof, on this matter.
Are there specific sanctions or specific rules that you have seen that ought to be either strengthened or amended to fit the purpose that you are seeking?
I may want to give you some, highlight on this matter.
Good.
Let me refer you to Article 20 of the AfCFTA. And before I get to that, let me talk about Article 5. Article 5 talks about the regional economic communities would be the building blocks to the AfCFTA implementation, correct?
Exactly, you are right.
And then Article 20 talks about dispute settlement.
Yeah.
And within the context of that dispute settlement, what Article 20 did was to present member states only as figures that can approach the dispute settlement mechanism. Now, what happens if a trader in Nigeria and perhaps South African government has an issue? Who approaches the dispute settlement? What happens if there's a problem between Nigerian traders and Ghanaian government, just like we have seen for some years now, under the protracted lock of shops belonging to Nigerian traders?
And those difficulties taken care of within the AfCFTA protocol?
That's what I'm talking to you about. I'm building a case. What happens when the Nigerian government unilaterally closes the border against Ghanaian traders that should be coming in?
Yeah.
Courtesy of the AfCFTA.
Yeah.
What happens where you have Benin Republic collecting transit money collecting tax, transit goods that all over the world, never, nobody takes duty on transit goods because they are not meant for you. So what happens? Who goes to court? Who goes to the sanction? The dispute mechanism. And you are limiting the dispute mechanism to the member states themselves, who are the offenders of the law. So, where do you bring justice? I am sure you understand what I'm talking about here.
I do.
So that's the problem. Why don't you expand it and make the dispute settlements approachable, accessible by the traders themselves, by the business actors themselves as well. In case of inevitable disputes, so that they can also trash matter.
Yeah.
These are the problems I'm talking about here. And in any case, if you don't want to open that up there for everybody, well, I don't know why it shouldn't be opened for everybody, because government does not do business. It is the private sector that does business.
Yeah.
So if you don't, why don't you therefore create a dispute settlement or arbitration mechanism for the business actors where they can report, and then with strong sanction mechanisms that can be applied?
So you're saying that the current dispute mechanism only survives between countries, between the states, but not between businesses. Is that what
the
you're
point?
saying?
And unfortunately, the states do not do business. It is the businessmen that do business. What you have done is to keep that thing as a tea party, political in nature. So the AfCFTA will not be politicized at the end of the day.
But these were negotiated, and some private sector individuals were on the negotiating team. Why didn't this come out? Why didn't they know that it would be the business, the private people, business individuals, business economic operators who will need their disputes to be settled, and not states that will need disputes to be settled when it comes to business? And so
my dear brother Sam, I have talked and talked. I have even written on this matter. And what I keep hearing is, yes, you have a point, you have a point, you have a point. If I have a point, why don't we transcribe it into action? Just like the issue of sanction mechanism. Why don't we? So that we become serious. You have a point, you have a point. Oh, yes, I have a point. Then let that point speak to reality.
Is there a way the Nigerian Traders Association can team up with your counterparts across the region and possibly across the continent to bring this out in a louder and a bigger voice beyond just yours?
You are taking it out from my mouth. You are taking it out from me. We have been on consultations on this matter, which is very important for us. So we brought in some of our experts, some of our colleagues from other countries, and we have been trying to look around some of the issues. Not only these, but other ones that we have also smelled and identified around the AfCFTA. We want AfCFTA to succeed within the context of NEPAD. NEPAD would have really been successful. And of course, NEPAD would have integrated some of these items, that BIAT and the CADAP, and essentially the AfCFTA. All of this would have been rolling, and Africa would have been developed more by now. Anyway, so we are trying to see that AfCFTA works for Africa, indeed.
Where do you think we can get all this right together immediately? Who would you call to the table now? Government, AfCFTA Secretariat, the business community? Who should begin to take things under control so that we don't lose this time around the AfCFTA? Because we cannot afford to lose the AfCFTA. This is one of the best opportunities for the continent to come together economic-wise. Where do we start from, bringing everybody together?
We collectively must make AfCFTA work. It is a collective action that we require. And we are doing it, and to the best of my knowledge, we are doing it, and we're going to back up AfCFTA to succeed. Even if this truck called AfCFTA looks moribund, we'll all collectively put our hands and push it to traction. And the way we are doing it is that we are starting with consultations. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity of having broader consultations. And I can tell you something that also worries us. Within the contemplation of the AfCFTA, there was an arrangement by the heads of states in Addis Ababa that all the member countries, all the heads of state should go back to their countries and have consultations before the signing, before putting pen to paper of the AfCFTA. Unfortunately, very, very, very regrettably and sadly, there's only one or two countries that did that. If you remember, that was the reason why we held our own President Buhari, back from signing on the AfCFTA.
Yeah, I do.
And we insisted that we must have consultations. We insisted we must have some level of, data. We insisted we must have some level of impact assessment that will now rally all of us around, so that we will see clearly with our eyes open where we are signing and what we are signing for, and where we are benefiting and what we are losing, because there must be some level of cost and benefit analysis. So we move on, and here we are today. At the level of private sector, we are working together, having our consultations along also, and coming back, we will move down to the, to the African Union through the AfCFTA Secretariat in Accra.
Looking at all these difficulties we have all talked about, and looking at all the things that we expect to work at the regional level, yet we are not seeing it work, are Nigerians and Nigerian business community optimistic about the AfCFTA?
My brother, I can tell you that both Nigerian business community and Ghanaian business community are all optimistic. ECOWAS regional business community, we are all optimistic about the AfCFTA, and that's why we're giving our support, totally. And that's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why we're consulting among ourselves.
Great.
To make sure that it works. And by the way, if you look also at the absence of a clear trade policy at the regional level, that will make you begin to suspect. Why is it that on one hand, the AfCFTA provides in Article 5 that regional economic communities will be the stepping stone to the implementation of the AfCFTA?
Yeah.
Yet, at that regional level, we do not have a common trade policy that will show the, if you like, the compass of where we should be and where we should be navigating, even the negotiations of the AfCFTA itself. That's an embarrassment for us. Even in my own country, and perhaps some other countries within Africa, many of them do not have their national domestic policies. That's one. On the other hand, number two, is that there is a poor alignment between trade, agriculture, and industrial policies. There are frictions. And that's why we will just be trading as if we are buying and selling, without traction, without linkage to development, without serious linkage to wealth creation, without serious linkage to poverty reduction, without serious linkage to sustainable development. And if this is done, we will continue going around the circle without making progress. We need to tilt towards export orientation of trade. What can Africa produce to the outside world?
Yeah.
And a major chunk of our imports, of our consumables, coming from Asia. Supposing there's no Asia, what happens? What happens? And we are dependent on others. Come on. I think we need to move. We need to move. And that's why we all support AfCFTA to move and make progress. Let's promote our export. Let the governments of Africa arise. Governments of ECOWAS region, the West African region, arise. Let's, the current chairman of ECOWAS, President Nana Akufo-Addo, call for a meeting specifically meant for the AfCFTA. I don't see the reason why ECOWAS heads of state should only be meeting when there is problem in Mali, when there's problem in Gambia, when there's problem in Burkina Faso, when there's problem, and then they will be calling emergency meeting on all of this. Heads of state summit. Call a heads of state summit on development on the AfCFTA. Let's trash issues and move. Because if AfCFTA is working effectively, it will reduce poverty among the people, among the nations. And if poverty is reduced among the nations, nobody is going to have time to look for problems and look for crisis. Crisis will reduce, poverty will reduce. And meetings for insecurity will also reduce. And the budget spending for insecurity will also reduce. That's the only way we can make progress.
So very critical and strong views coming from Dr. Ken, the president of the Nigerian Traders Association, also the federal government of Nigeria's AfCFTA champion, a trade lawyer himself. And it is important that we take some of these comments in good faith and absorb them and be able to see how best we can utilize them to effectively implement the AfCFTA. He, for instance, is not entirely happy about the sanctions embedded in the AfCFTA. He feels they are not strong enough to cause deterrent against flouting or infractions against the rules of the AfCFTA. He's also asking that the dispute resolution mechanism is expanded to include businesses instead of making it state to state that can only benefit from disputes and all of that. So he wants businesses to get involved. These are critical issues that need to be discussed at all fronts, especially now that we're all gearing up for commercially meaningful trading on the continent of Africa. And we assure you that we will be bringing you quite a number of views like this, people who are on the ground, people who are supposed to feel the AfCFTA on the ground, benefit from it on all of that, what their concerns are, and how we can all factor them into the proper implementation of the AfCFTA. Now, coming up next are quite a number of the views and perceptions some of you have also expressed regarding this, the programs that we have aired on this platform, regarding some of the activities that we have showcased on this platform. Some of you coming from the social media platforms, others also coming from our traditional media platforms. Suleimana Ibrahim says having efficient ports is a major requirement for doubling intra-Africa trade by 2035, a key takeaway. At Expanding West Africa says, looking forward to seeing how this project will come together. Igbozi Isaac says, your program should include how to grow African SMEs. Indeed, Isaac, we do have a segment dedicated to highlighting SMEs and also regularly engage relevant institutions to educate SMEs on staying competitive and growing their businesses. Continue to stay tuned to enjoy a lot more of that. So very, very useful comments coming from you, and we encourage that. We also encourage you to continue to send us a lot more, because this is an opportunity for all of us to contribute our quota to bring in the continent's economy together. And we don't want you to sit aloof and just come one day and say, look at how they have done it. They should have done it that way. They should have done it that way. Keep your thoughts coming, and we will endeavor to share them with the rest of the world. Where it requires us to get you responses, we will contact the relevant authorities and indeed bring you those responses. Now, let's now bring you the weather report for all African cities. The flight schedules moving from the commercial capital of Africa, that's Accra, to the rest of African cities. Also, the forex rates for the African market and the AfCFTA status for all countries on the continent of Africa. So that's it for this week's edition of the Single Africa Market Program, the continent's #1 and the most reliable platform where you get all activities and events regarding the journey of the continent of Africa to integrate its market. And in the coming weeks, you should be hearing views of pundits who engage in the continent on the ground to tell us what they feel about the AfCFTA. It will be important to shape the journey as we all gear up for commercially meaningful implementation of the AfCFTA. We thank you for watching. We also thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Keep them coming and hope to see you same time next week.
There's a African righteousness in the name of great Africa. It's a fight and conquer now. In the name of great Africa, there is victory. Over in the name of great Africa.